نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So we pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will seek assistance from Him. The best way to do that would be to follow His instructions for seeking assistance. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, O believers, take my assistance, take my help. How? Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah. Take my help through sabr and salah. And we've talked about this on a few occasions. The sabr, taking Allah's help through sabr. What does that mean? It means, firstly, keeping ourselves restrained to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the first component of sabr, because sabr means to restrain oneself. So, remaining consistent in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in unfavorable circumstances, even in difficulties, even when enduring inconveniences, this is the first component of sabr. It requires discipline, and it requires really applying oneself. It's a kind of patience. Then the second component is to restrain oneself from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keeping oneself away from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This also requires discipline, because there are many times when a person feels compelled to either do a certain thing or to walk away from a certain thing. Sometimes the temptations are extremely strong, and so on and so forth. So it takes a great deal of willpower and strength to keep oneself away from sins and then do it consistently. So that's the second component of sabr. And the third component of sabr is to withstand and to tolerate when something is not going our way, when circumstances are unfavorable, when conditions seem to be against us, when a calamity befalls, when someone does something or says something that is hurtful or painful to us. So to do sabr at that time, this is also a very big chapter in deen. It's also a very important chapter in deen, but this is the third component of sabr. When you put all of it together, you get this very complete life of a person who's living that life is ready to take from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As opposed to someone who is not remaining punctual in doing good deeds, is not consistent in abstaining from bad deeds, then when problems come, sometimes the problems are because of their own acts, their own actions. Now they're saying, okay, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be patient for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not the complete formula. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in many places in the Quran, He joins sabr with taqwa. وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا. So, repeatedly in the Quran, sabr is joined with taqwa. So that sabr, which is a composite of all of these things, is going to bring the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's going to protect you against other people. لا يضركم كيدهم شيئا. If you have sabr and taqwa, then people might be plotting against you, but they can't actually harm you. If you want reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to you, but with sabr and taqwa. If you want your deeds to be preserved, if you want your wealth to be preserved, all of these promises are with that sabr that is joined with taqwa. So this is the first thing. And specifically from all the deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated to take His assistance directly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected salat. So salat itself is a very powerful medium of taking the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever a person turns to salat for the fulfillment of their needs, Allah Azza wa Jal rushes to the assistance of that person. So salat is a tool, or it is a weapon that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to help solve our problems, if we start seeing it that way. And the interesting thing is, salat is very closely linked to sabr. Why? Because salat, it also requires a person to remain consistent. At the very least, 5 times daily salat is necessary. Somebody who's not praying 5 times daily salat, and they'll just stand up and pray 2 rakats when they need something, then this person is missing out on the bigger picture. And salat is also instrumental in keeping us away from bad deeds. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. So salat is one of those things that enables us to bring good into our lives and become disciplined. It also enables us to become disciplined in abstaining from sins. That's why in salat all things have been restricted. Even halal speech has been forbidden. All halal activities that are not a part of salat are forbidden in salat. Eating, drinking, talking, doing anything externally is forbidden in salat. So this is also a course in discipline. It's also a course in building one's focus and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a multitude of beautiful things in this salat. So this is the first step towards taking the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If somebody wants the help of Allah in all of their affairs of dunya and their affairs of akhirah, then sabr and salat is more or less a very complete picture. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to take His help and assistance through these mediums. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi. فتهدي الضياء لها